Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Episode. Today we're going to continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and today we're taking a look at MiSTer Addons Reflex Adapt. It's not Reflex Adapter, but I'll probably say that later. It's where my brain wants to go, so forgive me when I do. But you've been asking me to do a video on the Reflex Adapt for a while now, and here we are. It is such an amazing device to be able to get your controllers into your MiSTer via USB. Just be aware this is not Snack or Snacks, it's doing a different thing, but it is so incredibly close to those devices I absolutely can't believe it. And it is just honestly a tiny little box that does such big things. It is wild to see this work in real time, but we're going to go over the hardware, how it works, and tell you all about it. And big thanks to Mr. Addons for sending this over. He sent it in for a review, but of course there are no pre-existing conditions as my channel never has them. You'll see at the top it's very simple. We have a reset button, a mode button, a little display, which is actually one of the best features on the device in my opinion. But my personal favorite is this lovingly designed in Idaho logo on the bottom with the potatoes in the middle. I'm from Vermont originally, and if I had a logo it would definitely be maple syrup, but tell me down below what you would have for your state. Just seems like a fun thing to ask in comments. But as we flip Reflex Adapt back over, you're going to see those two HDMI ports at the bottom, and those are what you're going to plug in the different controller adapters with. And I will say I love the HDMI port as a design decision because not only is it keyed, but they just hold on so well. And it is USB-C around the back. Mr. Addons always uses the best technology, but it is great to see USB-C here. You can't pick the wrong direction to plug it in, and it's not micro USB, so thank God for that. And top marks for the plastics. I used to work at Burton Snowboards, mostly on the team and brand management side, but I did do some plastics development for our goggles. I know good plastic when I see it, and Reflex Adapt definitely has some. So as far as the controller adapters are concerned, you're going to see we have the male HDMI cable right here, and that just goes into the female HDMI port, leaving us that GameCube controller adapter at the other end. You plug in your controller into here and it goes right into Reflex Adapt. It is really nice, and all of these ports are top quality as well. I was actually surprised by all of the fit and finish on these. They fit perfectly, not too snug, not too tight, really just worked out. But the best part about this, and I've been getting a lot of these adapters for my Snacks device, is there's so many different options. We have Sega Genesis, Neo Geo, Nintendo 64, which works great on the current work in progress core for MiSTer, PC Engine, Super Nintendo. There's basically an adapter for almost anything you want to use with Reflex Adapt, and I will go over the table of what it does work with later. But I've been keeping this new old stock Nintendo GameCube controller in box for probably like 7-8 years now. I don't even know where I ended up getting it, but this is going to be my new go-to just to play around with different MiSTer cores when I'm just feeling kind of saucy and want to use a brand new controller for it. But it's pretty simple as to why this device exists. A GameCube controller works on a GameCube. MiSTer is all USB. Even if you go Snacks, you're still using a USB user port. Try as I might, I've never been able to figure out a way to plug a GameCube controller into my MiSTer. Obviously this is just a visual gag to indicate why it doesn't work, it just doesn't fit. But with the Reflex Adapt, we now have the ability to plug in this controller via USB. The GameCube controller goes into Reflex Adapt goes out to the MiSTer. We now have the ability to use the GameCube controller on MiSTer via USB with 1 millisecond polling time as far as lag is concerned. It is extremely minimal on MiSTer, so much so that it's going to beat basically any USB controller you plug in, and definitely going to beat any Bluetooth or wireless controller by far. But it's just so awesome to be able to hold a GameCube controller and know I can use it on my MiSTer with Reflex Adapt. But my main takeaway when I was playing around with this is it is PC compatible as well, so I decided let me take my original Neo Geo stick that I have modified with my own controls and kind of play around and see what I was able to achieve, because this stick right here is an absolute classic, and I do have other custom build DB15 controllers that I do use, so I figured let's see if I can play Metro Melee on Neo Geo Core and Power Instinct 5 on PC. Now as far as the PC compatibility is concerned, it is extremely easy. It is plug and play, but of course with a USB cable you have to pick the wrong side first, which I did on camera, always happens. You plug the other end, the USB-C cable that comes with the device, into the Reflex Adapt, and it just lights up. It took my Windows installation on either my laptop or my desktop PC like 4 seconds to set everything up, and I was able to successfully play Power Instinct 5 on my PC. And I will say right now, I've played the ever-loving hell out of this game. I usually either use a Damon Byte USB adapter, or I use a Neo Geo Pro arcade stick that I just pivoted around with some modifications inside of the controls. Power Instinct 5 on my Neo Geo controller or my DB15 sticks with the Reflex Adapt is just a better experience. I was pulling off specials so much easier. And you will see on the screen here, we have different modes we can cycle through. Now by default it comes with a certain setup, but if you download the firmware updater, you're able to go ahead and pivot what controllers this uses. Because of the limitations on the chip that hold the firmware, you're only able to hold about 4 to 5 different items at any one time. But you'll see here, if we download that firmware updater and extract it wherever you want, as long as your device is plugged in via USB, and we go in here and open up reflex.exe, you're going to get a list of all of the different firmware flashes you can do. Nintendo, NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, GameCube, and Wii, and you have so many different combinations. So you can set this up however you want to use whatever controllers you want, so long as they are compatible with Reflex Adapt. I'm sure MiSTer Addons is going to add more as time goes on, but it gives you the ability to flash things around. And Sonic BR did the firmware for MiSTer Addons as well, and he asked me personally to thank him. He's done an amazing job because this firmware just works. Now to get it running on your MiSTer, you're going to see that you have to download the reflexupdater.sh script. There's a few notes if you're using CRT, but honestly if you're using CRT you probably already know that. Go ahead and just copy that script into your scripts folder on your MiSTer device, go into scripts on your main menu, and run the Reflex Adapt script as well here. Now you can change the firmware for Reflex Adapt on MiSTer, not having to go through a PC whatsoever. It is great that there's both a PC tool as well as a MiSTer tool, so no matter what device you are using, Windows or MiSTer, you can change the firmware on the fly to whatever you would like. So if you want to have that Neo Geo controller implementation, you can just go into the Reflex Adapt script on your MiSTer and change it in real time. I think it took like 2 to 3 seconds for it to flash. Honestly, it was done before I even realized it. And whatever downloader you like, I use Update All. It'll bring all of the controller bindings down for Reflex Adapt with that Update All script. So just run that and you're going to be 100% good to go. So obviously Snack and Snack adapters do exist, and those are from MiSTer Addons as well, but Reflex Adapt has such a great place in my implementation as how I use my MiSTer. They both use the same adapters, which is going to be dual purpose depending on what you want to do. You can use one adapter for 2 things, and with Reflex Adapt you're going into the USB ports on your MiSTer FPGA versus the user port. So if you do want to use something like a MIDI MT32 Pi Hat, you can use that at the same time that you use your original controllers, which is such a major benefit versus using snacks when you have to go through that user port. There's definitely been some times I wanted to use real controllers and MIDI at the same time, and that does preclude it. But there are so many different adapters available, you can pretty much pick your favorite controller and go from there. But I will leave a link in the description below to this Google Docs sheet here. Actually, it's an Excel sheet, but what does it really matter? Showing you all the different controllers you can currently use with Reflex Adapt. There's so many in here. There's even a controller for the Sharp X68000. I was shocked to see that on the list. I didn't really think anyone would add any compatibility for that, but it's there. So if you want to play the X68000 core with MIDI with an original X68000 controller, you can look through the compatibility list, find out what works for the Sharp X68000, and start playing it today with Reflex Adapt. And using my original OEM Nintendo 64 controller on the work in progress MiSTer core just felt like playing real hardware. It felt even better because we have Mario in widescreen. It is just wild. This starts feeling even better than the real thing. And with my custom DB15 stick I built to my specifications, I don't have the biggest hand, so I kind of spaced it out just for me. I used to use a Damon Butt USB adapter, and it definitely did get the job done, but it's definitely homespun. It's not something you're going to throw in your bag and take with you to a friend's house for a fight night, and it did have some inherent lag in it that I just didn't love. With Reflex Adapt now, playing Power Instinct 5 on my PC just felt like playing it on JVS. It was fast, it was responsive, and that's the great thing. This is obviously a MiSTer focused video, but having PC implementation means that you have one device that does 2 incredible things. It does more than that, but my focus is on MiSTer, obviously. And then I can use the same stick on the Neo Geo core, play some Matra Melee, and have an absolute blast. From MiSTer to PC, all I do is change the plug. I'm using the same controller to play some of my favorite games. I am shocked how good this thing really was. I'd had a few people tell me, Andy D, who helps me with captures, told me I absolutely had to get one, and if he says it's good, I know it is good, and I will tell you right now, this is a straight up 10 out of 10 product. There is absolutely no perceivable lag in any of my tests, but I will do some more scientific lag testing in the future if you guys want to see that, so let me know down below. And the link to pick one of these up is down below as well. I make no money off it whatsoever. Decide to buy it, don't decide to buy it, I don't see a penny either way. But I'm going to tell you right now, Reflex Adapt is probably my favorite new way to get my original controllers into MiSTer. Snack and Snacks is awesome, but I do lose that user port. But I love being able to unplug it from my MiSTer, go to my PC, use the same controller, and play a different game. If you have any questions or need any help, leave them down below, but I'll see you next time. Bye bye!